Welcome to Hood Champion Boxing and Sports. In boxing, you find a way to win or you find a way to lose. So right now, man, I think all of us are losing hope on seeing Errol Spence and Terence Crawford get into the ring this year. That fight is losing steam, man. Every day that goes by, that fight doesn't get firmed up, it loses steam. Okay, and the ship can't sail unless there's steam. So they need to get some coal thrown inside that engine, man, so we can get the steam going and get this ship to actually sail, because we've all been kind of on the edge of our seats waiting for announcement. We keep getting bits and pieces of hope, getting us all excited, okay? So the latest and greatest on Errol Spence and Terence Crawford is boiling down to economics, okay? Not just as far as the financial demands that Bud and Earl want, but also just trying to piece together the financial, demands for the undercards. But the sticking point here is Terence Crawford. He knows that he has what Errol Spence wants. Okay? So there's a couple things. One is Bud knows Errol Spence wants more than anything to be the undisputed champion. This is a fact. Errol Spence has gone on record and he said it. And Bud's like, well, look, if you want this belt that I have, then you got to pay me. So now, this is where it gets tricky. And I've touched on this in other videos. I'm not going to go and drill down too much. Errol Spence did what he had to do to get guys in the ring with the belt. Okay? Going in 50-50 fight purse, 50-50 pay-per-view, 50-50 ticket sales. That's what you have to do to get the guys in the ring. You almost make it impossible for them not to fight you when you give them those kind of deals, right? So you go, you defeat a Ugas, you defeat, a Porter, a Danny Garcia. Okay? And you defeat a Kell Brook. Now you have all these belts. And you're looking and you're saying, you know what? I'm going after Terence Crawford now. But you come in with all the hardware. You figure this is a 70-30 split. Terence Crawford's like, if you want this, you're going to have to pay me. Give me what you gave them. If you gave Ugas 50-50 down the board, why can't I get 50-50? Now, when I look at that, I think both men are correct. Errol Spence shouldn't have to give him that kind of money because he really is the big fish. He has more to lose in a sense as far as the amount of hardware he has. But Terence Crawford, at the same time, he's done a lot in other weight divisions. He's been undisputed. He's proven that, he's a special fighter at 147. So if you're going to pay these other guys that kind of money who don't bring anything to the table close to what Crawford brings to the table, as far as not just belt, accolades, accomplishments, you understand? I'm not talking about amateur, we're talking about professionally. Then I can see what Terence Crawford kind of like, hey, well, pay me 50% of everything. So that's one issue, right? The second issue is Terence Crawford has gone on record and said he's never had a rival like Errol Spence. This is his biggest rival so far in his professional career. And he's mentioned the Pacquiao-Mayweather rivalry. The Hearns-Hagler, the Sugar Ray Leonard-Hearns, the Sugar Ray Leonard-Duran. But this is the problem. There's got to be money there, okay? When you see these guys making $15 million, $20 million, $25 million, you can't just come and say, I want that kind of money just because you want it, all right? So pay-per-view is extremely important to bridge the gap of these guys, some would say reasonable, some would say unreasonable, financial demands. Listen, right? how do you take a guy, and this is Errol Spence falls underneath this umbrella as well. Errol Spence, he's not a pay-per-view draw. Yes, he has done pay-per-view, okay? But he's not a guy that's going to generate 100. And not this fight right here, I don't think it generates 1 million pay-per-view buys. Because Terence Crawford hasn't been groomed into that. He hasn't been built up into that, okay? So, to make it a successful event, to get these guys what they want, there's going to have to be some handsome pay-per-view numbers. And the guys behind the fight right now, the matchmakers, the promoters, everyone, they're concerned about going into this fight and not being able to make the kind of money necessary to satisfy the fighters. Now, understand this. If Terence Crawford has made, his highest purse to date like 6 or 7 million, if Errol Spence's highest purse has been around, I don't know, 6 to 12 million, then why can't these guys both pull $20 million paydays? I think the pay-per-view will sell. But look, this is no Pacquiao Mayweather, man. This isn't a Mike Tyson fight, you know what I mean? This isn't Pacquiao back in the day. This isn't even, what's that, Jake Paul and KSI and those guys from a couple of years ago, over 1 million pay-per-view sales. I don't think they're going to hit that mark. Not because people aren't going to watch it. It's because of the bullshit streams, man. It's the piracy. So how does a promoter or a network, Garrett, how do they plan to pay a guy, let's say 20, 25 million. Let's say 15 million each, right? How do you plan on giving them that kind of guarantee? And then pay-per-view and everything on top of that, when you're not even sure you're going to be able to get the kind of sales you need. So when Terence Crawford is saying, hey, look, this is my biggest rivalry. This is the biggest rivalry in the welterweight division in a long time. He's right. But there's got to be money there, man, And these guys want a lot. My understanding is they're talking about like 20 million apiece. It's a lot of money. That's a lot of money, man. This isn't Deontay Wilder, Fury. That's a lot of money. Now, I'm not saying they don't deserve it. I do, but you just can't pull that out of the air. So Steven Espinoza, he wants to make the fight. He was optimistic. He's not saying anything anymore because they just hit a roadblock. They've hit a roadblock. It's just not there. And the fight is losing its steam. So the biggest issue now is they've had a date reserved at Madison Square Garden. I think it was November 12th. First it was supposed to be Vegas. Then now it's Madison Square Garden, November 12th. October got pushed to November. They've had that date reserved for a while and still no movement. People, it's September now. August, a couple of days, we're in September. September, October, November. 8 weeks is, these guys have been training along, so I ain't too worried about that timeline. But at the end of the day, you don't want to overtrain either. Could you imagine if these guys have been trained the last 3-4 months and still have a couple more months to go, not knowing if the fight's going to happen? So look, people are losing hope that this fight's going to happen this year, or if the fight's going to happen anytime soon. Because so first you got the networks, the promoters, getting pressure from the fighters because the fighters want certain economic guarantees, certain economic paid, certain economics to at the end of the fight. They want that satisfied before anything happens, right? And they're not sure they can get them that kind of money. That's the first problem, okay? Second problem is, after that date in November, there's no other dates the rest of this year for that fight to happen. Nothing. So it's either full steams ahead, we're all in, or mission abort. Abort mission. And I think the mission is going to get aborted. I'm going to go ahead and say that. I honestly do. Okay? There's no reason for this fight to have not been signed and for that date to be pushed out to everybody. They're firming up undercards. If that was all set in stone, I think it would have been announced. But it makes me wonder, right? What the hell? Who's involved in this? Because you look at a guy like Tyson Fury and Usyk. Tyson Fury's talking crazy about $500 million. But at the end of the day, that fight is 90% done. You look at it, when fighters want to fight, they're going to fight, man. But for these guys to sit there, man, and allow this opportunity to pass, that's crazy. So you got the fact that there's a whole bunch of money wanted, right? That economically just doesn't seem, realistic. Then you have the whole issue with the date and the venue, okay, which there's nothing outside of that November 12th date, to my understanding. The third problem is the sanctioning bodies. If you're not defending those belts, they start to stir the pot. So you have three things that are against that fight from happening. And those three factors are heavily weighted, extremely strong. So when you look at that, the fact that the money's not there, the venue date, the date for the venue, that November 12th date, there's only one. If they can't sort things out, it got to get pushed. And then you look at the fact that the sanctioning bodies, okay? So money, venue, date, sanctioning bodies. That's a problem. What are the things that make you optimistic about the fight happening? What would make you feel optimistic that this fight's gonna happen? Because they both say they want it. There's been no announcement, right? You see? So we really can't, now that the dust is settling, I can't get excited about this fight happening. Not this year. And if we go to the end of September and things haven't been sorted out, the fight's not happening, okay? And everyone's gonna be pissed off. They really are. This is like what happened with, the Floyd and Pacquiao wasn't in their prime. Hey, it was still a good fight. Deontay Wilder and AJ, they could still fight, but it had built to a head. It really did. It was like, strike while the iron's hot, make this fight. It didn't happen. Now look at the fallout as a result of these two not fighting. AJ lost, Wilder lost, AJ lost his confidence. Looks like he just can't pull the trigger. Wilder took some serious damage. We'll find out if he still's got in his next fight. This man's sleeping in silk pajamas now. We don't know if he's still the guy we don't know if he's still a fighter who wants a body on his record, okay? So now you got to come and look at what the hell is Spence and Crawford going to do? They got to sort it out. Because if they miss an opportunity like this, I don't think it's going to come back around. I just don't. Enough of the gamesmanship, enough of the mind games. Make the fight, but it's not going to happen. Keith Thurman, he's doing more interviews. He's talking more and more about these two. Keith Thurman feels that Terence Crawford is a very technically sound fighter, but he's coming up from a lighter weight class. This is the truth. He feels Errol Spence is the true welterweight. Always fought at the welterweight. He feels he's the bigger man. As a result, he feels Errol Spence has the bigger punch. He feels Errol Spence has the bigger punch. Sorry for the video skipping. So he gives Errol Spence a chance to break Terence Crawford down, especially after the 6th round, where Errol Spence gets that second win, or he has another gear that he goes into. Errol Spence in the early rounds seems to, I don't want to use the word like struggle, but that's probably where his opponents have a really good chance to get up on points, and probably if you're a power puncher, to possibly get him out of there. But Errol Spence, his offense is his defense, okay? But once it goes into that second half of the fight, it's like when Spence was fighting Kell Brook. Kell Brook was winning. I think we would all agree to that. But after that 6th round, Errol Spence just took off. They just can't keep up with him because of his conditioning. Now, have we ever seen Terence Crawford get pushed like that? No. Does Terence Crawford get tired? No. So will Errol Spence be able to come in there and oppose his size or strength and that high work rate dog mentality, style of fighting on Terence Crawford? Who knows? We haven't seen Terence Crawford in it with someone like Errol Spence. And we haven't really seen Errol Spence in it with someone like Terence Crawford. If you let Keith Thurman tell you, he'll say neither Terence Crawford or Errol Spence has been in there with someone like him. But Keith Thurman is comparing himself more to a Terence Crawford style and saying just the athleticism and the quick twitch type movements. Errol Spence has never had that in front of him. And he's saying, how's Errol Spence going to track down the rabbit? That's just jumping all around and, striking when he wants and getting out of harm's way. I don't think Keith Thurman should be comparing himself to Terence Crawford at all. Now, that Keith Thurman, before marriage and all that, I've said it before, I think most would agree. That Keith Thurman was a problem. I would say Keith Thurman beats all these guys, but it's not the same Keith Thurman. He can still make the fight interesting. But he brings up some valid points, man. The fact that Spence is the bigger guy, he's a strong guy, and Crawford is, a very slick puncher. He can switch hit. He's got power. He has IQ. He has speed and he has stamina. So they're pretty well matched. But I've said it before, I'm going to say it again. I think Keith Thurman's going to fight Errol Spence. But the thing is, that's because of WBC and his position in WBC. But if you look at Jaron Ennis, where he is, you look at where Stanley Unis is, Errol Spence is going to have to pick somebody. But I don't know how they're going to determine who gets the first shot, because there was a huge convention with the sanctioning bodies where if they had a unified champion, especially an undisputed, but they look at the unified champions and then the sanctioning bodies talk and they come to an agreement on which sanctioning body, which one of their guys are going to get a shot at the champion first. Now, I don't know how far they've got with those discussions, but I know that's something they were looking to work out. So there's not so much conflict and not so many situations where a unified or an undisputed champion is getting stripped of a title because he's defending his mandatory for the WBC against a guy like Thurman. But then there's a WBA that has a mandatory for Stanley Unis. You can only defend your title against one person. But if all of these sanctioning bodies, man, are pushing their mandatory and say, oh, either fight my guy. He's like, no, fight my guy. Well, I'm going to go WBC, right? I will strip you of the WBA belt. That's what they do. And now Stanley Unis will fight whoever. And that's where it's not fair to the fighter. That's what happened to Josh Taylor. They just totally screwed Josh Taylor. But this is what's coming, okay? But I don't know. We'll just have to look and see, man. I think from a business standpoint, I think although the Spence-Crawford fight excites us all, I think from a business standpoint, it's just one of those things that it's just not going to happen, because business-wise, it doesn't make the kind of money that's needed to get these two, to satisfy these two, and to get them in the ring. And it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. These are times where you wish Eddie Hearn was there with his mystery briefcase, you know what I'm saying? To pop up with 10 million. Say, here's 5 for you, 5 for you. But that's not happening. It's not happening at all. But we'll see, man. They need to have a huge promotion. They haven't been able to do that. It's just not that easy, man. They need to be. These guys just can't come and go to Vegas, Miami, and New York, and California, and call us up promoting the fight. These guys need to move around, man. They get on their private jets. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of moving pieces behind this. And you know how fast they'll have to get that done? It's crazy. It's crazy, man. But it is what it is, man. They both have that electrifying ability to knock people out. And we'll see. We'll see if they can sort things out. But my understanding is Errol Spence is being a bit more realistic about everything. Terence Crawford is the one that's just like, no. Because Terence Crawford's been unified. He's been undisputed. Terence Crawford doesn't care. He's gone on record and said he doesn't care. Some say he was just emotional because he was frustrated. Others say, no, that he really feels that way. I'm telling you what Bo McKinney said. If Errol Spence wants this belt, they're going to have to pay us. So they're willing to hold out as long as it takes. But what's sad about this is Crawford fought last November. So this will be first time Crawford fighting in over a year if they don't fight till November. Errol Spence has fought early this year. He should have been back in the ring already. So these guys are spinning their wheels. Like, they both could have had tune-up fights. Neither one will lose. But they should have had tune-up fights. This is crazy. But I just want to drop that 2 cents on you guys, man, and understand that, man, I think this fight has lost steam. I think definitely if they ever sign and agree to it and get an announcement, that'll kind of breathe some life back into it. But right now, I think that mission's aborted, man. I think we can just move on to the next thing. If anything, things are still looking good for us because you're gonna get either Boots in the ring with one of them, Stanley Eunice in the ring with one of them, Keith Thurman. Some people feel like, hey man, Keith Thurman needs to disappear, but I don't, But Keith Thurman is gonna get in the ring with one of them, or you're gonna get I said Boots, right? Oh, Virgil Ortiz. You're gonna figure some things out. He's ranked up there, so you got 4 solid opponents for these 2 guys: Virgil Ortiz, Stanley Eunice. You got Keith Thurman. You got Boots Ennis. Hey, we may not get Spence and Crawford, which for the unification, for the undisputed unification, man, but a distinction. But we get some solid fights with these 4 opponents. Any of those guys matched up with those guys with Spencer Crawford, that's something that we want to see. Now, if they pick an opponent outside of those 4 names, Ortiz, Stanley Eunice, Thurman, and Boots, that is a fail because it doesn't do anything for them, man. It just hurts. It just hurts these guys' profiles, in my opinion, man. But they can do what they want. But that being said, man, I appreciate the support of everyone. Sounds like Crawford wants that Fury versus Usyk money, $500 million. He doesn't want that much, but he wants more than what's there. He just, it's just not there. It is what it is. But like they have a saying, man, back around the way, is what's sweet in a goat's mouth is sour in his bam bam, right? Meaning his butt. So for Terence Crawford, it may be sweet chewing up and trying to digest the idea of making all this money and holding out. But when he digests and it passes through his system and he see that fight doesn't get made, and now he has to go fight for $1 or $2 million, his bam bam gonna be sour, So I think these guys need to just be more realistic with things, understand the time and the day and age that we're in, where people are gonna steal fights, man. You're not gonna, it's hard. The Pacquiao Mayweather, that's over. The 2-3 million pay-per-view buys, that's over, man. Okay. Can it happen again? Possibly. What are the chances? Less than likely. Just be glad for like a little $300,000-$400,000 payday, pay-per-view sales. Plan around that. Some sponsorship in. They need to figure it out. But right now, I'm gonna leave y'all with that. I just feel it's lost steam, and I think mission's been aborted, man. So get ready to see these 2 fights. Some of those, one of those 4 names that I just mentioned, because these guys, I've lost all hope in this fight happening. All for selfish, stupid reasons. That being said, man, y'all keep cool. I appreciate the support. Shout out to the veterans. Y'all stay safe. It's late. I'm going to bed. And as always, I'm in the breeze.